Welcome back, everybody. Today we're gonna take a look at splitting trick uploads and submissions. I woke up with this idea and it seemed really fitting. I didn't want to have one single window for both trick uploads and submissions, so I thought a trick could actually exist in theory, like a triple backflip. And well, somebody has done a triple backflip, but let's say you can imagine a triple backflip, but imagine if nobody actually has done it, right? So you can create theory tricks, but you shouldn't have to be forced to upload a submission alongside that trick, okay? So this is what we're going to take a look at today. We're going to be separating these two, and tricks can exist without submissions, okay? So let's go ahead and tackle this. There's going to be quite a few moving parts, but hopefully it's not going to be too bad. So first of all, let's go ahead into our components and video upload. What I want to do is I'll just leave this open, but I will go ahead and create a new directory, and I will call this content creation. Okay, and content creation, just about content creation. We either create a trick or a submission. So let's go ahead and add a view component. So this will be a content creation dialog. Okay, and this is how we're gonna split it out. So let's first of all go ahead and grab everything here. We'll just replace the template first. We'll grab the name. We will put it on a new line. We'll replace the name, so we have the name. And what I will do now is I'll just delete the data and the methods, the custom methods, because this is not where the upload is going to be happening. And by splitting this away, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the stepper itself and I'm going to cut it, right? So this is where the new components will go, okay? Let's go ahead and actually remove these ones at the bottom as well. And here we have our new component, so more or less fresh. We won't have this upload type here, so let's go ahead and clear this out and re-import this. What I will do now is basically, since we have a new hardness for either trick submission, for trick creation or submission upload, I want to split this out, right? So going to the video upload, again, we'll just sort of leave this open here as I'm going to create a new view component, and I'll call it trick steps, okay? Let's go ahead into video upload. We'll grab everything. We'll again replace the template. We'll grab the name and we'll put the name here and delete the video uploads. Don't forget the comma, remove the two elements, so keep the styles there. Another thing that we want to do is let's go ahead and get rid of the dialog, and we just want the v-stepper in here, okay? So v-stepper is the main component that we want to be changing, right? So there's going to be two different steppers. One stepper for the trick information, the other one for the submission upload. Here, let's go ahead and just remove everything except this bottom divider, right? So for the headers, what we're going to end up with is just two steps, right? So first of all, because this is trick information, let's go ahead and say trick information, and then we review. There might be more steps, but I don't know yet. Let me remove that S on there. Next thing, this no longer exists here, so we're no longer choosing. Trick name stays. Video upload no longer happens, and the save basically stays as well. I'll keep this here. Let's change the steps to 1 and 2. Trick name is still there. One thing with the save trick, let's call this step. We will increment, so now the step will be living in each individual stepper. It's no longer living in the video upload, okay? So, and we'll just call, or rather say next here. So this step is now local. Let's always start with 1. And trick name, what I want to do is I will actually go ahead and stick it in a form, like so. Okay, and that should make it a little bit easier to pass it around if there are going to be more elements. So I'm just setting up for the future again here. So form trick name, right? There's a couple of functions here that we want to take care of. First thing is there is going to be no more uploading, right? So I don't think we will need any of these properties, so let me go ahead and remove this altogether. And here all we want to do is just save the trick, right? So we're just going to be making a post. So for the create trick, it's no longer going to be this involved operation. Let's go ahead and copy this because we're not going to be doing this together anymore. Let's go to the tricks store, and here for the create tricks, we will remove the submission type. We will no longer depend on this type here, and we're no longer creating the submission. And the return trick we no longer needed either. What I will do is I will rename this to, and let's not grab everything, I'll rename this to form, okay, which is conveniently named of what we have. Okay, so going back to the trick step, let's go ahead and surface this. So let's go ahead and grab tricks, and here we have the create trick. We don't need the start video upload. For now, I'll keep the save function in case we need to do other things, for example, like close the form. So let's go ahead, remove everything up to where we call the create trick and handle file upload. This no longer happens. Instead of this whole malarkey, what we actually need to do is just say form equals this form, right? And yeah, this should be pretty much it after we need to close this thing. So let's go ahead and say to do close dialog and reset component state. Okay. Some of the things that are no longer going to be happening, ink step will no longer exist. We will need to close something here, but we will, so a reset will be okay. And let's go ahead and actually do this, right? So probably be able to resolve this right here. So reset. So we're just gonna reset the video upload store, and that should force the content creation dialog to basically close. Okay. And after that closes, what we want to do is we also want to reset the data here. So let's go ahead and create a const init state. Same pattern as before. We will just take this function, we'll stick it here, and we will assign init state to data. And now what we'll do is we will basically use object assign again, and we will use this $data, and we will trigger the init state function. And whatever's been filled out here should basically be dropped back to this initial state where the form is empty and where it's step 1, okay? And this is when we press save. So the to-do has been handled, and you can see nothing in here about the submission stuff. So I'm actually liking this a lot better. One thing is we'll change this to step 2. There might be more steps. Another thing, you see we lose IntelliSense here. So this is writer not being able to figure out that this is actually part of the data, but can't have everything. So compute it. Let's go ahead and remove that. We no longer need to know about the upload type. Let's check the imports. We don't need that. And map state, I don't think we need any of that as well. Again, if any errors occur, we can go ahead and solve them. So on the content creation dialog, here where we have our more or less ill-formed comment, right? Let's go ahead and get trick steps in here. Okay, let's make it self-closing, and we'll just leave it here. We don't need to do much with it. You can see it has been imported here, but again, we don't need to know much about it. Let's go ahead and close the trick steps. The trick where we create the trick. Let's go ahead and actually just not make this asynchronous. And what we will do is we'll just return the promise. So whatever is awaiting on this call can still await it there, but we don't need to propagate a state machine here. Okay, and I don't know if this works exactly like it does in C#. Let's also clean out this import we're not using and this URL as well, since we're already setting it in the base in the Nuxt config.js. So here I feel like I can close the tricks section and the video uploads. Let's go ahead and leave this open. I will create another view component, and this will be the submission steps. Okay. Again, we'll go to video upload, we'll grab everything, go back to submission steps, replace the template itself, and then just make sure that we delete the styles. Grab the name for the component and make sure that we replace the current name. put a comma here, and delete the old script tag. Okay, so here some things are going to be different, but again, primarily this is now going to be responsible for the submission as well. And I want to incorporate selecting the trick here as well. So same as before, we'll remove the dialog bits. So this whole bit, the stepper bit is the most important bit here. And again, we'll bring the S back. Right here, what I will do again is because I want to do the reset. So we'll do init state. And let's go ahead, I forgot the const there. And we will set this to this function here. We no longer have the trick name. We do have the step. We're again starting at 1. And again, I will just have a form where I can have the full form for the submission, where I can have a trick ID, which I'm going to set, and a video. Okay, which again, I am going to set. Let's go ahead, format this a little bit, make sure we grab the init state, set it here. Upload type, I don't think we'll need it here, so let's go ahead and get rid of the upload type. We can go ahead and now grab the map state here and just bind it to the computer property. We don't need to know about the active or the step. This is again something that doesn't need to exist. And upload type, we do need to know about the upload promise, because that's how we get the video name. Okay. Before we get to that, to sort of know what we can remove here, more or less, let's go through these stepper headers first and make sure we know what we need. So the upload video step will come first. Then it will be before we submit the submission information. I want to select the trick, right? So here's where we're gonna have a drop down. So we upload a video, start doing that first. Select a trick, and then submission information, select trick. I'll just call it submission. So let's fix the steps here. So it will be 4, 3, 3, 2. Again, I'm not sure about the review step, but we'll fix it later if it doesn't fit or anything like that. Again, this first step is gone. Then we will include the step for the file upload. That should be first. The second step is going to be the description, or rather, sorry, that's the third step. So again, we can refer back to this. So select trick is second step. So here, let's go ahead and grab vselect. And actually, it's probably worth referring to the Vuetify documentation so you can kind of know where I'm getting this from. So if we get started, and again, look towards the UI components, they're going to be under a form input controls section. And here, what we want to do is we want to go into the selects. So selects, right, this is what it looks like. How do you fill it out? You can pretty much open this up, and you should see a binding to items here, and here are the items. Let's go ahead, and we can always check the format for this. So let's search for items, and yeah. So here you can see the binding of the items. So what we can do is we can bind the text and the value, and then control if it's disabled, the divider, blah, 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 right? So the important part for us is the text. This is just going to be the name of the trick, and then the value. So this is going to be the ID of the trick, and this is the part that we want to bind to our submission, okay? So what I want to do is, remember that part in the index where we have the Nux server in it. What I will do is I will again call fetch tricks from here. Basically, I will make this a lightweight import of all the tricks that we have. If it's going to be causing problems in the future, I will get rid of it. So let's go again and get dispatch in here. Didn't actually copy this, and what we're going to dispatch is tricks and fetch tricks. So again, this is just going to load in all the available tricks, and what this will allow me to do is, let's go ahead and close this index page. On the submission steps page, what we want to do is we will have to get the state back in here. So maybe did this a little bit too early. Let's go ahead, deconstruct this here, copy this line, and make sure that we have commas on both of these. And the video upload, we'll replace it with tricks, and we'll say tricks here as well. Now what we'll do is we'll say trick items, and this is a computer property, right? So here all we want to do is we want to grab all the current tricks that we have. We don't need an if statement, a check, because we essentially do that as the first thing, right? So where was it? In the index module, right? That's when we load the tricks. So let's go ahead and map these to the items format here. Okay, so we want the text and the value, and that's pretty much it. So here, let's go ahead and make sure that we're returning a new item, right? So this is how you do it. You need to put it in angle brackets first, because if you do just the curly brackets first, that's a body statement, okay? So here, again, text is the thing that's going to be displaying, so we want just the name of the trick, and the value is going to be the ID, okay? So X is trick in this sense, so if you want, you can rename this trick. I will keep it as is. So trick items, let's go ahead back up here, and when we had the select in here, let's go ahead and bind it to trick items, and let's go ahead and give this a label of trick, or maybe select trick. Okay. Again, we'll do the same thing here as we did previously for the other trick, and notice how you no longer need to think about if you're breaking the functionality for the trick upload, okay? Again, we'll just handle the step increment here. Again, remember that the step is no longer global, it is kind of local state. And we will copy this button, and when we save the submission, we'll just do next again, and this will be the review part. Another thing is about the V model. So this part is going to V model to forms, or rather form dot trick ID, and this part is still going to be not the submission. Let's go ahead and check the submission. I think, oh, wrong button. Submission, we have just description. So let's go ahead, copy this, and we'll put this here. Make it lowercase, and make sure that we replace the submission there as well. So one more thing, let's go ahead and just make sure that the steps are all correct. 1, 2, 3, 4, and let's double check these functions. So on handle file, we check the file, we create a new form, we append it, and we start the video upload. Because this is now going to be local, this is where we want to do the incrementation. We then start uploading, right? Let's go ahead and remove this space here. We then select the trick, we bind it to the trick ID, we then fill out the description, we say next, and then we save. So what do we do when we save? We upload, promise, we check on it, so we have the video. Instead of finding this video here, let's go ahead, go to the form and bind it to the video here. All right. Next thing is submitting the form itself. So let's go ahead and, whoa, still haven't learned to press the correct buttons. Let's just bind the form here. Okay. And create trick, again, this is no longer a function that we will be using. Let's go ahead, copy this, and what we'll do is we will go to submissions, we'll put this here, and instead of trick and submissions, again, we'll do the same. We'll have a form. Instead, now we will be submitting it for the submission, so we're creating a submission. All this gibbity gunk there on the top can go. Async and await will remove this, and we'll just make sure that we're returning this call. And then this is still something that we can await in our submission steps. So going back here, again, we'll have to map another set of actions. These ones are going to be, however, for the submissions. Going back to submissions, making sure that this is named correctly. Create submission. Let's go ahead, copy this. We will put create submission here. Okay, now create submission. We will put this here, right? And this is pretty much it. Again, for the trick name and basically resetting state, we can go back to, where was it? Let me close all of this stuff. Go back to trick steps, because here we essentially already did this logic. We can go back here and just copy paste it, right? So reset and reset state. One little error I'm seeing right here on the bracket not being closed. Now to just make sure, start video upload, this is using create trick. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. So we'll do F12, create trick. This is no longer used. Go back to the previous file, remove create trick from here. Next thing is inc step. So let's go ahead and remove stuff from here. The step itself, we no longer use it. The rest of the stuff seems irrelevant, so let's check toggle activity. So we're actually going to change this. So let's go ahead and call this activate. And here what we will do is we will pass the type. And this is how we will set the type now. So state.active. So essentially, right, because we've separated the two steppers, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the original way I wanted to do it, where I'm just going to have a menu and you're going to select. You either want to create a trick or upload a submission, right? And then this is where we will set this activate step. And this is where we will either get one stepper or the other one. Right, but active, this is true, and this, or rather state type equals type, right? And this is where we'll still pass the enum, however, we no longer need to see that. And maybe actually we do, thinking about it, yeah, let's keep that. I think I know what I want to do with that. For toggle activity, we don't need to do this because when we reset, we're going to close it and reset state, okay? Next thing, set type. Set type occurs here. We are no longer controlling the steps, so we can remove that. Set task still happens. We no longer need to increment the steps though. Inc step doesn't exist anymore, and this looks all right. So actually, one thing that I'm seeing a problem with this is if we do want to just hide it and resume the upload in the background, what will need to happen is we will need to, in our submission steps, take this save function and push it down into here, since this will reset the state for this component. But again, that's kind of like in the future. I'm gonna not touch that. I'm gonna focus on the current thing. So yeah, just notice that I'm just gonna share that I'm noticing a problem with not having a dedicated close function, but closing it through a reset. But for now, it is okay and it makes sense. So let's go back to the submission steps, and we no longer have inc steps, toggle activity, and set type, which is fine. Let's go ahead up here, and I feel like I can see an error. Okay, so I'll page down, will drop you down to the next error, and I was just missing a curly bracket on the end here. So let's go ahead, save that. And actually, looking at this now, I really do want to push this down. So let's go ahead and do this. For the create submission, we will copy this. However, we will create the exact same thing in the, what's it called? In the video upload store, okay? So instead of doing the API call here, we are going to make this asynchronous. Let me just bear with me, make this async. And let's go ahead and first go into the submission steps. We will copy the bit where we grab the upload promise. So let's cut it. Control tab to go back. Instead, we just assign it to the form. And instead of state this here, we'll pass the state. And then again, going back, create the submission. This is something that I'm just going to cut. I'm going to paste in here. And I'm going to make sure that I replicate it correctly. So I want to await on this. I want to dispatch a command to the submissions submissions slash, not getting IntelliSense. So what was it? Create submission. Let's go here, and again, we will just pass the form and make sure that we are triggering this as a root true, right? So we are indeed gonna go ahead and send this over here, and we await it here. So at the moment, what we can do is we can just kick this off in the background, okay? And make sure that we're not actually doing this call on its own. So going back to the submission steps, you can see that no awaiting actually happens here. So we remove the async flag. And what we do is we call this dot create submission, and we just go ahead and make sure that we pass this form. Okay. As for the reset part, this is where this becomes a problem. So imagine if we call the reset while this is happening. It's going to nullify our upload promise, and that's going to break, right? So this is where we want to hide, okay? So state, nothing's changing except that we are closing this. Okay, state is going to be inactive, and all this is gonna do is this is just gonna drop the video uploads form down, right? And then whatever stepper was active in here, this is where we reset. So let's not forget to turn this back to, or rather make sure that this is hiding for the create submission. You can see that it's still pointing to the submission, so let's go ahead, take this function out and make sure that we grab it from the video uploads. We'll close this here and going here, so for the create submissions, we will be just hiding it, but after this is indeed finished, this is where we want to commit a reset and actually flush this component. So there is another thing that I'm well foreseeing is essentially, let's say somebody saves and this drops down and then they start creating another component. What do we want to do in that case? Do we want to let them create another component? How does that affect our Vuex? Or do we forbid them to upload another thing while this is still uploading, right? But that is, again, that is a problem for the future. Now, let's go ahead and display this. So we have the trick step. I think we took care of that. Submission steps. Let's go ahead and just have a final glance. Upload promise. We no longer need this here. So let's go ahead and get rid of this. We're still using tricks to select from the dropdown. Primarily what we can do with this bit here, if we want to basically consolidate it into one thing, we can go ahead and create a getter. And I think this might be actually really fun. So let's go ahead and say export const getters. And again, this is very similar, but here we will say tricks items and items. And all we do here is we basically kind of grab the state and then pass it on and select from it, right? So what we would do is we would just grab this much, cut it, go back here, put this here. Instead of this, we use state. And then we go ahead back to the submission steps. Instead of map state, we use map getters. Go ahead, put this here. Make sure to go back, tricks items. Let's go ahead and make sure that we just name this trick items. Let's go ahead back here, and this is the thing that we're going to be selecting. So now I'm going to go ahead and remove this and make sure my computer properties live nicely on one line, and that should be my submission steps. I think no point looking over this more. I think this is okay. And maybe this bit here, right? So we no longer have the upload promise in here. Let's go into create submit and make sure that we check for a state upload promise. So just make sure that we have it here, okay? So now going back, let's close the video submission steps. We'll fix errors if there are any there. Tricks, let's close the tricks. Submissions.js, let's close that. A video upload itself, right? This component can go. We no longer need it. We are going to be utilizing the content creation dialog. So a couple of things that are going to be happening here. We are no longer going to have any actions. Upload promise no longer happens here. Step and type no longer is really needed. Let's go ahead and make sure that we just have the state here. Actually, we will remove the upload type as well. I don't think we'll need it. Let's grab the import and make sure that we're looking at this stuff. So actually upload type, we will need it for the menu. So which one are we going to be selecting? So perhaps could avoid it altogether, although it seems a little bit dodgy. Let's go ahead and get there first. So let's remove all the stuff we don't need. For the mutations, we do have a reset here. We want the activate. So let's just double check that we're not using the type anywhere else, and then I think we can actually get rid of it. Right, so we're not using it anywhere in the steps. Let's go ahead and try without it, right? So let's comment it out, and what we will do is we will use component instead. We'll just say null here. We will pass component here. We'll comment this out. And we'll grab component, or rather state.component equals component, right? So instead of you determining based on the type, we're just going to push the view component into there. So you see how we have these trick steps. What we will do is in here, we'll just go off the component. So let's go ahead and grab the component, all right? So we have the component here. Let's go ahead and create a component element, or rather use that, and then we can bind is component, right? So this component value is going to come from the Vuex store, and here is where we have to return this kind of object, trick steps or submission steps. So let's go ahead and make sure that we have the submission steps as well. So submission steps. I'm not getting it. I know the easy way. Submission steps, right? And that's gonna bring it in easily for me. So remove these now, and now I want to dynamically bind the component. So for my computed properties, let's go back to Vuetify and first get a menu in here. So if I know my alphabet menus, okay. So not messing around, let's just go ahead and grab the first thing that we see, vlist items, a vmenu, where we have the upload button here. Let's go ahead, put this here. Upload will no longer serve us. Format this color and dark. Let's get rid of this. The attributes and on, let's leave it there. Drop down, let's rename this to create items. So these are going to be menu items. So let's go ahead and create menu items in our computer properties. And maybe this could be data, but for now, let's leave it here. And I'm going to return a new array. And in here, we are going to have a component, and let's go ahead and bind trick steps. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a title. I'm going to say create trick, right? So this is the menu title. I'm going to copy this. Let's put commas here, and then let's just trick and submission, right? So create is kind of the name of the menu, create, and then you can choose what you want to create. Instead here, submission steps, let's use this component. And now, since we have these menu items, let's go ahead and grab them for the items here. And you can see we set the key here, and it just goes off the index. Now, there is going to be a lot of things that are going to be using the for loops in the application. So the way I like to handle this is I like to interpolate this a little bit. So first, what component are we in? Content creation dialog, so CCD. And then what is this for? This is for the menu. And then finally the index, right? And this is how I make sure that more or less anywhere where I'm going to be iterating through items, I'm going to get a unique ID, okay? So the item itself can stay. The title is pretty much what we use. And then the click, right? So what's going to happen when we click on this item? This is where we want to activate the dialog. So let's go ahead into video uploads, and we will grab the activate mutation. So where we have mutations, let's go ahead and bring activate into here, and this is where we will activate. And what we're going to pass in here is item.component. Okay, so that's going to be the component property, and that's what it's going to set. Now, yep, the component is going to be grabbed out of here, and it's going to be put in here. Let's go ahead and just get a div in here, and what we're going to say is if component, right? So if the component is not null, do this thing, all right? Other than that, one thing, let's just rename this to I, and I think that should be more or less it. Upload type, we're not using it here. Going back to the video upload type, let's go ahead, get rid of this. Data, in terms of the enums, let's keep it in there. If we're not using it in a while, writer will tell us, no problem, we'll remove it then. One more thing, get rid of map actions. Make sure we drop this to one line. Format this a little bit more. Okay, another thing, we'll need to go to the layouts, default, and make sure fix the component here. So instead of video upload, this is a content creation dialog. Go ahead and remove this video upload. Make sure we remove the component from here. Now, been a lot of changes. Been a while since we took a look at the UI. Let's go ahead and check this out. So Control F5, F12 for any errors. And first thing is we see toggle activity. So I think this is the part where I forgot to replace. Okay, so the close, right? So what do we do with the close? When we close, I think we just want to reset, okay? And the problem here is if we close in the middle of the form, that means that it's not going to reset the whatever values we had in the form. So let's go ahead and say reset here. So this is where we're going to trigger the reset function. What we want to do now is make sure that the state in our other components like submission steps and trick steps resets when we close. So what do? In these two components, instead of nullifying the state here, what we do is we say watch, and we want to watch the active, what's it called, property of video upload. So let's make sure that we surface it here. So for map getters, for the computer properties, again, we'll have to expand it. I hate to do it, but no other way around it. Let's go ahead and bring in a video upload into here, and we'll just say active. Is it active? If it's not getters, this will be state. Do we get, first we need to grab the function, or make sure that we do grab the function. Activate, right, so we are able to navigate there. So what happens when we activate? We want a function where, and make sure you're not using a lambda here, make sure that you are using indeed a function, okay? And new value. So when this is going to close, if what is going to happen is if it's going to be set to false. So if new value, okay, there we go. If it is new value and it's a false, then what we want to do is we close this, right? But when we hide, we're going to close it. So we only need to handle it once in the watch here, okay? And this becomes more or less pretty simple. Let's go ahead, copy this. And looks like I am missing the computer properties there as well. Maybe let's just copy the whole thing. Yeah, because I will need the state here. Let's go ahead and make sure that we include the active property. Watch stays. Right, let's go ahead and see how this works, because if you remember before, when I was uploading the video and then I upload the video the second time, the goddamn video is still there. So we want to reset the state there, and actually might actually not help with that particular issue. This might not handle that, so we will see if that works. Let's go ahead and close this. Again, going back to the browser, flash the console and refresh. Map state is not defined. That's okay. Let's see where it's not defined. Where did we bring it in? It's here, trick steps. Yeah, this is the part. So trick steps is where map state is not defined. Go ahead, refresh. Okay, no errors. Create is, again, it is in the flotation setting. Let's go ahead where we have the create. I will just not disabled by say that it's depressed, right? I'm just gonna right. So create, trick, submission. What do we want to create? We first want the trick, right? Nothing's here. Slightly worrying. So let's go ahead and quickly give this a check. We have an item where we assign the component. So going to activate. Same issue here where we just need to pass it as an object. So let's go ahead and say that this is a component, and make sure we have the bracket on the end, and this should make it more or less presentable here. Okay, so let's go ahead, close this again, create the trick, and there we go. Right, so the component is resolved dynamically through Vuex as well. All right, so yeah, if we go to submissions, you can see it's a different one and we get different steps. So first of all, let's go ahead and create a trick. So cork, next, nothing on the review stage yet. Well, let's go ahead and save it. Everything exploded. So let's go ahead and see what exploded. Take a look at the headers, and trick name is cork, right? So my bad. We need to fix the name here, right? So if we open trick, it has property name. That's what we want to set, right? So just name. Okay, so try number 2. Let's go ahead and refresh this. Create, trick, again cork, next, and save. Let's go ahead and refresh this because we no longer get that part. So I guess something is wrong here. Let's go ahead and check the store. Base state, where we have the tricks, object, ID and name are empty. So something is definitely wrong. Let's go ahead and check it out. Where we have the form here, we have the name. Okay, so one thing is I lost the model binding, right? So again, easily fixable. Let's go ahead and give this a, actually what I want to do is just rerun this, okay, to flush the state. So again, third time's the charm, right? Let's create a trick. Cork, still giving it a proper name. I still believe. Go ahead, refresh. We got the cork. Let's do another trick. So 540, kick, next, save, refresh the page. Cool. So if we go to them, we can see their slugs there. Let's go ahead to create submission. We will pick a video from the dropdown. We get the tricks. Again, the dropdown will probably change because there's going to be a lot more tricks, right? So you want to kind of type and search, and there's the auto completion input that Vuetify has, which we're probably going to change it to. But now, while we have small amount of tricks, this will do, right? So let's go ahead and create one for the cork. Next, description, let's say la la. Next, and save. Okay, did we do it for the cork? We did it for the cork, right? So these videos that are breaking, I'm kind of thinking that it's because of the key, but never mind. Let's quickly go to the page. So let's go ahead and open it up. So trick, and where we are throttling the video, let's just say 1 here. So we're just gonna get the 1 video, right? Let's give another submission, right? So the same thing. We will just grab the video. Trick, again, we'll just select the cork. And again, we will put validation here, but later. Bobo, and save it. Right. If we refresh, get the Bobo, and we get the cork. Whoa, big screen. It'll let you. Big preparation in order to fail. Boom. Well, not even a pretty fail, but yeah, it happens. But nevertheless, one thing that I do want to check again is submissions. We have a trick here. Let's go ahead and upload it for, let's do for 540 now. What I will do now is I won't refresh, right? So what I want to do is I want to click on create again, submission, and notice that the video is not there anymore, right? So we get a fresh form every single time. So that's good. This is the part where our reset state is working. So that's fine. I'll close the video here, and this will be it for this episode. Thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy it, leave a like, subscribe. If you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments, and do leave a comment if you think that these videos are taking a wrong direction, or you would like to see some other particular thing. Because if you're getting bored with the UI and the Nuxtjs stuff, I can go ahead and maybe weave in the direction of the database, or uploading it to the cloud and kind of seeing how that looks like, and then coming back to developing this. And as always, I stream on Wednesdays and Sundays. If you don't want to miss that, go ahead and join my Discord channel as well. I do all the updates here, and hopefully I'll see you in my other episodes.